Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam to all the devotees. Thank you all for joining in. Today will be our last session of this book, Raja Vidya, the King of Knowledge. So, we've been studying about what is that knowledge which will help our soul. All the other kinds of knowledge, which is Jada Vidya, are all binding us to this cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age. But this spiritual knowledge is what is actually taking us or transcending us from the three modes of material nature. So we'll start with the prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnupadhaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रधायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्नि गौरदुषे नमः पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So we were reading yesterday until who is the most dear to Lord Sri Krishna. Yeah, so Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, there is nobody else who is more dear to me than he who actually spreads my glories to anybody and everybody like that. So let's continue reading. It is therefore incumbent on us to preach the method of the Bhagavad Gita and make people Krishna conscious. People are actually suffering for want of Krishna consciousness. We should all engage in spreading the signs of Krishna for the benefit of the whole world. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came with this mission of teaching Krishna consciousness, and he said that regardless of one's position, if he teaches Krishna consciousness, he is to be considered a spiritual master. What is it verse? Shudra kene naya. Even if a person is a Shudra, say Krishna Tattva, say Guru Haya. Anyone who has this knowledge of who is a spiritual master, how do I approach a bona fide spiritual master, he is considered to be a spiritual master. That is one who knows Krishna Tattva. Who is the Lord? Who am I? What is my role in re-establishing my connection with Krishna? Anyone who knows this Tattva, whether he is a Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, Shudra Kene Naya, say Krishna Tattva, say Guru Haya. Anybody who knows the Krishna Tattva can be called as a spiritual master. Both the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are filled with information on how to become Krishna conscious. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu selected these two books. What are these two books? Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And requested that people in all corners of the world spread the signs in every town and village. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, and we should take this to be Krishna's indication of our proper work. But we should be careful to present the Bhagavad Gita as it is, without personal interpretation or motivation. Some people present interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, but we should present the words as they are spoken by Lord Sri Krishna. So we should not add, subtract, multiply, divide our own misunderstanding or our own conceptions or our own perceptions of the Bhagavad Gita. We have to just speak the Bhagavad Gita as it is described by the Acharyas like that. One who works for Krishna may appear to be working like anyone else in the material world, but this is not the case. Arjuna may have fought just like an ordinary military man. But because he fought in Krishna consciousness, he was free from the entanglement of his activities. So yesterday we were studying about what is karma, what is akarma, and what is vikarma. Right? Karma means we do something good for the people around us, and we get positive reactions for it. And what is vikarma? Vikarma means we perform something which is causing a disturbance to others. So we get sinful reactions. So, how do we perform work in such a way that the reactions don't bind us? We perform akarma. Akarma means we perform our work as a duty so that no pious reactions or no sinful reactions accrue upon us. So, for which we don't have to get a material body to actually nullify those reactions, right? So, we perform akarma. So, here Prabhupada is giving the example of how Arjuna, he also fought the battle, right? It's not that Arjuna went to the Himalayas and sat down and meditated there, right? Even when we sit down and meditate like that, we are killing so many microorganisms, bacteria which are around us, right? But even we are sitting down, clapping our hands, we're killing small microorganisms, right? So we cannot avoid sin, but how can we perform a karma in spite of the situation? When we work for the pleasure of the Lord, when we don't perform activities for our own sense gratification, then we perform a karma. In this way, his work, although appearing material, right? It's like normal work. That's why it is said that even a devotee goes to the office. A devotee also cooks food in the house. A devotee goes shopping, right, to get some vegetables, fruits, flowers, etc. It looks like a mundane activity. But what is the difference? The difference is only in the consciousness. A devotee does it for the pleasure of the Lord. A devotee buys vegetables and fruits so it can be offered to the Lord, and then we can honor Krishna Prasadam. Whereas a sense gratificatory person may just go ahead and buy things for himself, right? So that is the difference. The difference is not in the activity, the difference is in the consciousness. In this way, his work, although appearing material, is not material at all. Why? Because Arjuna was working according to the instructions of Krishna. Any action sanctioned by Krishna, regardless of what it may be, has no reaction, right? How do we know in this material world where Krishna is not personally present? How do we know what are the activities that are akarma? By simply following the instructions of our spiritual master. When we please our spiritual master, we please Krishna. The spiritual master will tell us what to do, what not to do. Basic is following the four regulative principles, chanting Hare Krishna. For other further details, you can check with our counselor or our senior devotees like that. Fighting may not be a very nice thing, but sometimes, as in the case of the Battle of Kurukshetra, it is an absolute necessity. On the other hand, we may perform work that may be very altruistic or humanitarian in the opinion of the world and yet be bound to material activity. So, very important. So, it is not the action itself that is important, but with what consciousness in which the activity was carried out. This is the profound sum and substance of today's chapter. What is it? It is not the activity itself, but rather it is a consciousness in which the activity is performed. Like that, it's mentioned here. All right. Karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akaranascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. What action is karma. What forbidden action is vikarma. What is inaction? Akarma. That means you perform activity, yet you're not entangled by the reactions of such activity. The path of karma is intricate. Therefore, we should understand the distinctions between karma, akarma, and vikarma. If we simply engage in Krishna consciousness, everything becomes clear. Very profound statement by Prabhupada. If we simply engage in Krishna consciousness, everything becomes clear. Otherwise, we will have to make distinctions between what we should do and what we should not do in order not to become entangled. In the ordinary course of life, we unknowingly break some law and have to suffer the consequences. Similarly, the laws of nature are very strict and stringent, and they accept no excuse. It is a law of the nature that fire burns. Even if a child touches it, he will be burned despite his ignorance and innocence. Thus, we have to choose our course of action and very carefully, lest the stringent laws of nature react to bind us to suffering. It is therefore necessary to understand what work to do and what work to avoid. Just 1 second. I'll just be back. Hare Krishna. All right. So the word karma refers to prescribed duties. The word vikarma refers to activities against prescribed duties. And the word akarma refers to activities with no reactions at all. Yeah, we've discussed this in detail. Karma means we perform our duties but with not attached to the results. Vikarma means we anyway are performing sinful activities. So definitely we will get sinful reactions for it, right? And then the final one is akarma. Akarma refers to activities for which no reactions, because we don't perform it for our sense gratification. We perform it for the pleasure of the Lord. In the execution of akarmic activities, there may appear to be some reactions, but in actuality, there are not. When we work under the directions of Krishna, this is actually the case. There are no reactions. If we take it upon ourselves to kill someone, we are subject to capital punishment by the state government. Our actions are then called vikarma, for they are against prescribed actions. If, however, the government drafts us into the army and we engage in battle and kill someone, we do not suffer the reactions. And this is called karma. In the one case, we are acting according to our whims, and in the other, we are acting under the direction of the government. Similarly, when we act under Krishna's direction, the actions we perform are called a karma, for that kind of activity has no reaction. Very beautifully put by Prabhupada. So, when we perform a karma, that means we are performing action for the pleasure of the Lord. We are not performing that particular activity according to our whims and fancies. We follow the rules and regulations of the Shastras and we perform that activity for the pleasure of the Lord. So, that becomes a karma. Otherwise, it will become either karma or vikarma, depending on whether we are performing a pious activity or a sinful activity. Karmanya karmaya pashet akarmani cha karmaya sa buddhiman manushesho sa yuktaha krishna karmakrit. One who sees inaction in action and action in action is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. Bhagavad Gita 4.18. One who can actually see that despite activities, there are no karmic reactions. He understands the nature of akarma. Actually, sees things as they are. The word akarmani refers to one who's trying to avoid the reactions of karma. By dovetailing one's activities in Krishna consciousness, although one may perform all kinds of activities, he is free. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna engaged in fighting, and those on the side of Duryodhana also engaged in fighting. Both Arjuna's team as well as Duryodhana's team were actually engaged in this activity of fighting. We must understand how it is that Arjuna is free from reaction, whereas Duryodhana is not. Externally, we can see that both the parties are engaged in fighting, but we should understand that Arjuna is not bound by reactions because he is fighting under the order of Krishna. We should understand that Arjuna is not bound by the reactions because he is fighting under the order of Krishna. Thus, when we see someone working in Krishna consciousness, we should understand that his work does not carry any reaction. One who can see such work and understand it is to be considered very intelligent. Sa buddhiman. The technique is not so much in seeing what a person is doing, but in understanding why he is doing it. Typically, what is the motive behind the particular action? It's not the action itself that is the cause, but what is the motivation behind it? Actually, Arjuna was engaged in very unpleasant activity on the battlefield, but because he was in Krishna consciousness, he suffered no reaction. Very, very beautiful point, right? Sometimes we don't want to perform some of our duties because we don't like doing it, right? Even Arjuna told Krishna, it is better that I go to the forest and I settle down there rather than fight my own relatives, because whom will I show off my kingdom? I will not have any of my relatives to show that I've won an unrivaled kingdom, or I might even incur sinful reactions because I'm killing my so-called relatives. And then he was talking about Varna Shankara, wherein the fathers would be killed, and then the woman would become unprotected. That would result in Varna Shankara. All that, he was giving so many reasons. So he was engaging in a very unpleasant activity, an activity which he didn't want to do. It was very unpleasant activity. But why did he do it? He did it because Lord Sri Krishna instructed him to do it. So whenever we follow the instructions of our spiritual master and we follow the instructions of Krishna, then we will suffer no reaction. We may be performing some action which we may consider to be very good work, but if we do not perform in Krishna consciousness, we have to suffer the reactions. So typically, it does not matter what work we do, but what is more important is what is our consciousness when we perform those work. From the material point of view, Arjuna's initial decision not to fight was a good one, but from the spiritual point of view, it was not, right? Generally, we think we according to our mental speculation, we think that some activities are good because so-called charity to people, so-called, not fighting for, to win a battle, right? Very, very moral. It looks very nice from the external, but from a spiritual point of view, right? Krishna consciousness is not external show up. Krishna consciousness is more with the heart, right? So, what is a pious activity? Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Whatever the Lord and the spiritual masters repeating the word of the Lord, what they are saying, that is dharma, right? Not what we think what is pious and what we think is, is impious, right? It does not work according to our whims and fancies. So we have to go by the laws of the Lord, which is given in the scriptures. When we do pious work, we get certain results. What are those results of pious activities? We may get a birth in a very good family, in the family of a Brahmana or a wealthy man. We may become very rich. We may become very learned. We may become very beautiful, etc., etc. On the other hand, if we do impious work, we may have to take birth in a low class or animal family, or become illiterate or foolish or very ugly, right? There's a positive side and a negative side, right? Whereas, sometimes we may, we want to be very rich, we want to be very learned, we want to become very beautiful, we want to attract a lot of name, fame, glory, etc. So Krishna will give everything. It's very easy. If we engage in pious activities and worship the Lord for all these things, we will get it very easily. But what is something that we will not get? We will not very easily get Krishna Prema. Right? Getting Krishna Prema means getting eternal service for the pleasure of the Lord. That we will not get. Other things we will get. Because all the other things are useless. Why? Because they all end with our body. Right? They're not going to give us any benefit that is going to be eternal. Yeah. Although we engage in very pious work and take a good birth, we will still be subject to the stringent laws of action and reaction. Our principal aim should be to escape the laws of this material world. If we don't understand this, we will become attracted by aristocratic families, wealth, good education, or a beautiful body. We should come to understand that despite having all these facilities for material life, we are not free from birth, old age, disease, and death, right? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Doshanu, Darshanam. Very beautiful, right? Whatever benefits we may get, we may think we are living very happily in this world, but it is only a question of time, right? Where we have to suffer old age, we have to suffer from some kind of disease, etc. The caution us about this. Sri Krishna warns in the Bhagavad Gita 18.8.16, Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartino arjuna mamupitya tu kaunteya punar janmana vidyate. Right, from the highest planet, Brahma, Bhuvana Loka. From the planet of Brahma to this material world, to the lower planets, right? One is always suffering. Why? Because one has to come back. One does not go back to the eternal world. Brahma, Bhuvana Loka, one has to come back. Punaravartino, Arjuna. However, Mamupetya Kaunteya, someone who comes, who worships me, for him, Punarjanmana Vidyate. He will come back to me. That means, for him, repeated birth and death will not take place. Even on Brahmaloka, the highest planet in the material universe, repetition of birth and death are also present. We have to go to Krishna's planet. Very beautiful point. We have to go to Krishna's planet in order to be free from this. What to be free from? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, and Vyadhi. It may be very nice to be a rich or a beautiful person, but how long shall we remain rich? Right? In one lecture, Prabhupada was saying how a person can be extremely rich, but suddenly somebody might just steal away his property, or even if he is enjoying throughout his life, at the time of death, he will have to give it away. Although he may not want to give up his property, he wants to live eternally with all the properties and the riches, but one cannot choose to do so. One has to give up that at the time of leaving the body. But what is it that is very eternal and goes on with us? It is simply the bhakti sukruti that we getting, right? The bhakti is the only thing that we can carry over from life after life. That is not our permanent life. We may remain learned, rich, and beautiful for 50, 60, or at most 100 years. But real life is not for 50 or 100 years, nor 1,000 years, nor even 1,000,000 years. We are eternal and we have to attain our eternal life. That we have not attained it is our whole problem. So clearly our problem definition is given here. What is the problem? We have not attained our our eternal position. What is our eternal position? Jivera Swarupa Hoye Krishnera Nityadas. That problem can be solved when we are Krishna conscious. If we leave this material world in Krishna consciousness, we will no longer have to return to this material world. The point is to avoid this material existence altogether. It is not a question of improving our condition in the material world. In prison, a man may want to improve his condition to become a first-class prisoner, and the government may give him A status. But no sane man will become satisfied by becoming an A-class prisoner, right? Because if you're an A-class prisoner, you may get a lot of facilities like good food and maybe a nice bed to sleep on. But ultimately, you have to break the stones. You have to do the work of a prisoner. You are not free to go out of the prison, right? So you can enjoy inside the four walls of the room, but you cannot go out. Similarly, Prabhupada is giving the example of how this material world is also a prison house, where one thinks one is enjoying all the facilities, but one is bound to this Janma, Mrityu, Jara and Vyadhi. He should desire to get out of the prison altogether. In the material world, some of us are A class, B class, or C class prisoners. But in any case, we are all prisoners. Real knowledge does not consist in simply getting an MA or a PhD, but understanding these basic problems of existence. What are the basic problems of existence? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, and Vyadhi. And also the three kleshas that we have: Adhyatmik klesha, Adhibautik klesha, and Adhyatmik klesha. Right? The difficulties or the suffering that are posed by other living entities, by the Daivik, that is, which is beyond our control, which is through floods, through famines, through fire, etc., and caused by our own body and mind. Adhyatmik. Yasya sarve samarambah kama sankalpa varjitah jnanagni dagda karmanam tam ahu panditam buddha. One who's understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of the desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge, right? We talk about it in the morning prayer. Samsara dava nalalida loka. So we want to extinguish that fire of material existence that is burning in our heart, and we want to start this fire of perfect knowledge. What is that perfect knowledge? That's the subject of our book, isn't it? Raja Vidya. That means, what is perfect knowledge? Perfect knowledge is to understand how can I get out of this entanglement? How can I get out of this material attachments? How can I develop love for Krishna? How can I attain Krishna Prema? That is only the transcendental knowledge. That is the perfect knowledge. And that is the fire we want to build in our heart. The word Panditam means learned, and Buddhaha means well-versed. In the 10th chapter also we find the word Buddhaha. The verse Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. What is that? Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha. Buddha Bhava Samanvita means an intelligent person. Buddha means well-versed, well-learned. Panditam, it all means the same. That means a person who is knowledgeable, who has the necessary wisdom. What will he do? He will actually work for attaining this knowledge, which can actually liberate him from this material clutches. According to the Bhagavad Gita, one may not be a learned man just because he received a lot of education from a university. The Bhagavad Gita 5.18 says that he is a learned man who can see everything on an equal level, right? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapa Kecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Who's a Pandita? A Pandita is a person who has equal vision. Samadarshinaha, he sees everything equally, right? And Vidya and Vinaya go together. Very, very important. What is that? Vidya means knowledge. If you get proper transcendental knowledge, then what is the natural consequence is humility. Vidya and Vinaya have to go together. Otherwise, Vidya will only increase our false ego. And there is no Vinaya. Then what happens? It becomes material knowledge, for which we don't have any benefit of that for our soul. Right? So when there's knowledge and adequate amount of humility that arises, because the transcendental knowledge is, I'm the servant of Krishna. Right? And what should the servant be proud of? Nothing. Isn't it? A servant can be proud if he can be proud that he's serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the pride of a devotee, right? That I am the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That can be the only pride. But one has to become Vinaya. One has to become humble. Then only the transcendental knowledge will be revealed in the heart. In India, according to Vedic civilization, a Brahmana who is learned is considered to be the topmost man in the human society, right? You have the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudras. The topmost rung on the ladder is a Brahmana. He's called he's called the person who is disseminating spiritual knowledge or Vedic knowledge, we can say. Not necessarily spiritual knowledge, but Vedic knowledge, right? From a ritualistic perspective, right? What should be done, how the yajna should be done, etc. They are well read in the Vedas. The Pandita, who is learned and gentle, sees such a Brahmana on the same level with a dog or an outcast to each dog. Why? Because such a Pandita or a learned person sees the spirit soul in all the jivas. He does not see the externals. He does not see the external body only, whether it is a pig or a man or a woman or an elephant or a dog or a dog eater. He does not see the external. Rather, he sees the soul, the spirit soul in every living entity. In other words, he sees no distinctions between the highest and the lowest. Is this to say that being a learned Brahmana is no better than being a dog? No, right? We are not talking here about no discrimination. No, right? A learned Brahmana is definitely different. Is differing from being a dog. How? The Pandita sees them as the same because he does not see the skin, but he sees the spirit. That's why a person will not go and preach to a dog. He would go and preach to a human being who is not envious, who is innocent, and who is not blasphemous. Right? We choose our people whom we want to preach to. We don't want to go and preach to everybody, right? One who has learned the art of seeing the spirit soul within every living being is considered to be a Pandita. Pandita Samadarshinaha. For in actuality, every living being is a spiritual spark. He is part and parcel of the complete spiritual whole. Vidya, what is that verse? Mameva amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manashastan indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. Right? Mameva amsha jiva loke. That means what? We are all amshas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? When we are amshas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what is it that we are what is it that we expect? We expect that we should be the master of all that we perceive, right? We don't expect that we will be controlled by somebody else because we are amshas of the Lord, right? So that is what is expected. But what does a devotee do? A devotee, what does he do? He understands that he is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then why am I struggling in this world? If an amsha of the Lord, I should have all the characteristics of the Lord, right? Yes, we do have all the characteristics of the Lord, but we have it in minute quantity. In quality, we are equal to the Lord. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Whereas in quantity, we are infinitesimal particles, whereas the Lord is infinite. And all the good qualities of the Lord will develop in us if we engage in bhakti, right? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunai satra samasati sura. Right? In this verse of Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated that how do we develop all these good qualities of the demigods? We develop those qualities when we simply engage in the process of bhakti. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. Right? We are not holding on to our material attachments, and I wanted also chant Hare Krishna also. That does not work. Only when the anchor is removed, the ship starts moving to the destination. Otherwise, we can keep rowing and we can keep being here in this material world. Yeah. All right. Okay, maybe yeah. The spiritual spark is the same in all, but is covered by different dresses. An honored man may come in a very shabby dress. It does not mean that he should be dishonored. Right? A respect. So we have to respect every living entity. Because the Supreme Personality of God is present as a super soul in every living entity, isn't it? So when the Lord does not discriminate, who are we to discriminate? Oh, this person is good, this person is bad, right? Of course, we give respect according to the level. As a Madhyamadhikari or a person who's preaching, we don't go and preach to envious people. And by hearing their blasphemy, our own devotional service goes kaput. Right? We don't do that. We know, because that is why Krishna says, I give the intelligence. Right? We don't claim to do anything on our own. But when the Lord gives us the intelligence, we're able to discriminate. And we know what action is to be performed, what action is not to be performed, what is the consciousness in which we need to perform actions like that. All right. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.22, these material bodies are likened to dresses that are worn by the spirit soul. Yeah. Vasham Shijirani Yatha Vihaya Navani Granati Roparani Tata Sharirani Vihaya Jirnani Anyani samyati navani dehi. As a person who puts on new garments, giving up old and useless ones, similarly, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Whenever we see any living entity, we should think, here is a spirit soul. Anyone who can understand such a spiritual vision of life is a Pandita. Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Chanakya Pandit gives the standard for education or the qualification of a Pandita in this way. The learned man sees all women, with the exception of his wife, as his mother. He sees all material possessions as garbage in the street, and he looks on the sufferings of others as he would look on them on himself. Right? Chanakya Pandit is giving a very practical tip here. Right? Why does the wealth belonging to another person should be considered tucha, useless? Why? Because I'm not going to get benefited by it. Right? I'm only going to get envious if I'm looking at somebody else's property. Right? Isha vasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena chattena bhunjita magrira kasya svidanam. Right? When we know that the Supreme Lord is the ultimate proprietor, enjoyer and owner of everything, then we don't claim proprietorship. Whenever we are accepting certain things also given to us by the Lord, we know that we are caretakers of that, and we are not the owners of it. And that is the right way to actually look at things in this material world. Yeah. Okay, last section of this chapter. Yeah. Lord Buddha taught that we should not even hurt animals by word or deed. This is a qualification for a Pandita, and this should be the standard of life. It is therefore to be understood that one is to be considered educated in accordance with this vision of life, and his activity in accordance with that vision, not by academic degrees. Very, very wonderful point, right? Not according to the number of degrees that we have, right? But it is according to the character that we have. Character is determined by what kind of education we've got, not the education, ABC education. The education of how to behave, how to speak, how to, what is the kind of, the emotion that we need to develop, right? Are we having humility? Are we giving respect to others? Are we expecting respect from others? What is our mood? What is our conscience? What is our consciousness? That is what it is. This is the understanding of the word Pandita from the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, the word Buddhaha specifically refers to one who is well versed in the study of the scripture. One who is well versed in the study of the scripture does not add one's own personal interpretations. He gives the medicine as it is. Right? When the doctor gives the medicine, he says, you take 5 tablets, you take 2 tablets 3 times a day. Right? We don't think, oh, why I should take 3 times a day? I think it is enough if I take only once a day. Can we do that? And then medicine will not work. Right? Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita formula that is given by Lord Sri Krishna, we need to take the prescription. Right? Bhagavad Gita is the manual for our life. So we need to take the manual and follow the instructions as is given by the Lord, by not adding our own interpretations to it. Then the formula will not work. The formula is very effective, but depends on the application that different people get different results. Right? The results of such realization and scriptural learning are thus described in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8. Am sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate dimatva vajante mam udabhava samanvitaah. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. The well-versed person or Buddha is one who understood Krishna as the origin of all emanations. Krishna is the source of all sources, right? Ishwaraha Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarvakarana Karanam. Whatever we happen to see is but an emanation of Krishna. For millions and millions of years, sunshine has been emanating from the sun, yet the sun is as it is. Similarly, all material and spiritual energies are coming from Krishna. As a result of knowing this, one becomes a devotee of Krishna. Right? First, one understands the greatness of the Lord, then one can progress towards the sweetness of the Lord. Yeah. Thus, one who knows that he must work in Krishna consciousness, who no longer desires to enjoy this material world, is actually learned. So the amount of our transition from Bhoga Vritti to Seva Vritti, how much am I thinking, what is in it for me? How am I going to enjoy myself? And to Seva Vritti is, how can I serve others? Right? The joy of giving is much, much higher than the joy of simply taking. What is in it for me? Oh, I want, right? So that is Bhoga Vritti. But we move towards Seva Vritti, the joy of giving. Then we realize the joy of giving is much, much more than the sense gratificatory pleasure of simply receiving things. Everyone is working in the material world due to lust, kama. But the wise man is free from the temptations of this lust Kama sankalpa varjitaha. Varjitaha means he is purified, or he has transcended the kama sankalpa. Kama sankalpa means desire for sense gratification. And how is this possible? Prabhupada is saying, Jnanagni dagda karmanam. The fire of knowledge burns up all reactions of sinful activities. What is this fire? This fire is of devotional service. This fire is to obtain that knowledge, by the practice of which we will get bhakti. It is the most potent of purifiers, right? Our lives, right? Even in Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita also, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantirni gacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktaha pranashyati, right? So simply, what is that? Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantirni gacchati, right? Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. Immediately, such a person becomes purified, even though, according to our previous conditioning, if you are engaged in some kind of sinful activities also because of the karma vasana that is there from our previous lifetimes, right? Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, such people also, they can be purified if they simply continue the process of devotional service. Finally, let's conclude the last line of this chapter. Our lives have meaning and direction only in so far as we strive to attain this transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness, Raja Vidya, which is the king of all knowledge. So with this, we are completing this wonderful book called Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge. So I thank all of you for your kind attention. So tomorrow we will start our new book for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We'll quickly do Harinam Sankirtan, celebrating our completion of Srila Prabhupada's book, and then we will end in about, say, 5 minutes. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatyaadishatadine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Jaya Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Sudarshan, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Bala Gopal, Bala Gopal, Jaya Bala Gopal, Jaya Shad Goswami, Jaya Shad Goswami, Jaya Shad Goswami, Jaya Shad Goswami, Jaya Guru Parampara, Jaya Guru Parampara, Jaya Guru Parampara, Jaya Guru Parampara, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gurudev, Gurudev. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद श्रील गुरुदेव की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Hare Krishna. So thank you for joining in. In case anyone wants to ask any query or share any realizations, you may do so. Otherwise, we'll end the session today and we'll meet tomorrow morning 5 o'clock for Brahma Muhurta.
Yeah. Mataji, today you only read fully last chapter, so.
Yeah, I only read fully because I did not see any hands raised. Then I thought, okay, I started reading. Oh, okay, okay. You in between you must have raised. I did not see.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I went with the flow. Hare Krishna. All right. So yeah. So we completed our. This is our 10th book, and today we have Vijayalakshmi Priya Mother joining. It's her birthday today, so we prayed in the morning. Also, we request devotees. We can all chant one time the Panchatattva mantra and 3 times Hare Krishna Maha mantra. Mataji keep very good health and always engage in the service of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Good Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Wishing you a very, very happy Krishna conscious birthday, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai. So meet you all tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock for Brahma Muhurta chanting, and then 12:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time for our new book. That's amazing.